Every organism in this world, be it bacteria or us humans, are living. But how do we know that we're alive and a table isn't? And why have we classified viruses as non-living when they in fact can reproduce just like any other living thing? How do we define living things? Well, we define them by identifying the characteristics of living things. You may or may not have heard about the characteristics of living things, but let's go over them once. These are things that all living things should be able to do or have. All living things are made up of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life, and all organisms have them. Now, this is the reason why viruses are not alive, because they don't have cells. Typically, when we're talking about cells, organisms are grouped as unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular, as the name suggests, are organisms made up of one cell, like bacteria and many other kinds of organisms. Multicellular are, as the name also suggests, organisms that are made up of multiple cells, like humans and many of the other animals that we see. All living things can reproduce. There are two kinds of reproductive modes: asexual reproduction, where reproduction happens through a single parent. An example of this would be an earthworm. If you cut an earthworm, a new one is formed. There's also sexual reproduction, in which two parents contribute genetic information. This is generally biologically better for the species, as it means there's genetic variation, whereas in the asexual reproductive modes, there are no new genes. Genetic variation allows for mutations and creates genetic diversity, which is important as they generally help the species better survive. All organisms grow or get bigger. Now, technically, snow on a mountain does increase the mountain's height, but this increase is external and reversible. Snow melts. Growth in living things is internal and irreversible. Living things also experience development, which is change in their physical form over time, their mental development, reactions, and responsiveness. All organisms are able to metabolize. They produce waste, they digest food and gain energy through what they consume, and use this energy for life processes. All organisms are mobile. They're able to move. Even plants, which don't move like animals do, still do move on the cellular level. The stem delivers water and nutrients to the leaves through its cells. There's also irritability. This is an organism's ability to respond and react to the stimuli in their environment. Examples of stimuli are temperature, light, sound, odor, gravity, water, pressure, and etc. Finally, all organisms experience homeostasis, which is a stable state that all organisms require to sustain life. The stabilizing factors include pH levels, temperature, blood volume, water balance, and the likes. Now, instead of using the words living and non-living, we use scientific terms. These are biotic and abiotic. Biotic refers to living things that have an impact on the environment or on other living things, and abiotic does the same thing, which is making an impact, but they are non-living. Abiotic factors are necessary for biotic factors to survive, and in turn, biotic factors can limit the kinds and amounts of organisms in an ecosystem. Together, both abiotic and biotic factors create an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living organisms, like plants and animals, and non-living components like water, air, and soil. They all interact with each other in the ecosystem, and each part has its own role to play. Biotic factors include anything that is living. They are, as implied by the name, factors in the ecosystem, and one way of classifying biotic factors is by their nutritional necessities. There are three ways you can categorize nutritional needs. Producers, or autotrophs, are able to make their own food. They can't exactly cook, but they don't need to consume something to eat. The most common example of an autotroph is a plant, which uses photosynthesis to convert carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight into glucose and oxygen. Plants, algae, and some protists are producers. Consumers, or heterotrophs, need to consume producers, or other consumers, to get their nutrients. Herbivores, like cows, only eat producers. Carnivores feed on other consumers only, and omnivores can consume both producers and other consumers. But there are also decomposers. You've probably heard of them. Fungi, like mushrooms, some bacteria, and earthworms are all decomposers. They are heterotrophs, but the main reason they're in a separate category is because they digest compounds made by producers and consumers, which means they break down dead and decaying producers and consumers, or they break down the waste products of living organisms. Abiotic factors are the non-living components of an ecosystem. Examples of these factors include things like sunlight, air, water, soil, rocks and minerals, temperature, the pH levels, and gravity. And natural disasters like wildfires, floods, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes. As you can see, all of these factors are non-living, but they impact biotic factors and can also influence one another. For example, a drought influences how much water there is in an ecosystem. For biotic factors,